everyone. Good evening to one and all. It's my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you all to this grand event of RedTeam Security Summit 2021. Your presence makes us very happy. I wish if I could see you all in person at this moment as a direct conference, but unfortunately we can't do that. So, we are going to have an informative and enjoyable time together with Miss Shabna Sainudeen for her talk on security and visibility in the accelerated cloud transformation journey. Welcome, ma'am. So, to begin with, let me take the privilege to introduce our honorable speaker today, Ms. Sabna Sainudeen. She is a senior cybersecurity professional with exceptional skills and experience in mobile, cloud, and IoT security. She is a defense leader of a big data platform and she is responsible for leading enterprise big data security operations. And moreover, Ms. Shabana is an Edison expert at Schneider Electric, which is a title given for selected senior experts for this outstanding contribution in area of expertise. And also, Ms. Shabana is the president of Women in Cybersecurity of India, thus leading through this community. We are delighted to have Ms. Shabana ma'am at Red Team Security Summit 2021. So now here we are extremely happy to offer you the most hospitable welcome we can to deliver the speech on your topic, ma'am. Welcome, and the stage is set to go live on your session. You can now talk to our respected participants and viewers. Thank you, ma'am. Welcome to the session.
Thank you, Jasila. That was a wonderful introduction, and happy to see such energy from you, Jasila. I hope everybody is equally energized to listen to this section. Yeah, so I'm not going to introduce myself. I'm not going to repeat whatever Jasila is saying. So let's get straight into the topic today. As Jasila said, I'm going to talk about cloud security, not like generic cloud security, because we already know a lot about cloud and cloud security. I'm going to focus a specific topic on cloud security, where we are today, most of the organization, what we are heading to. Okay, so before I start my section, as a disclaimer, I would like to put this: whatever I am expressing, whatever I'm talking in this session is from my personal view and from my professional experience. It doesn't reflect any views or anything related to my organization. So today I'm representing myself as a president of WiCyS India. So let's get started. I would like to share my screen first. I hope everyone is able to see the screen. Okay. So so that's today we are going to address about cloud security in accelerated digital transformation journey, right? Accelerated cloud transformation journey. As I said, I'm not going to explain about cloud security or cloud or statistic about cloud. What I'm going to talk today is, yes, we all know cloud has been there for past 10 years. Most of the organizations started adopting cloud technology, maybe say like significantly from 2010. And if we see, all this adoption was a gradual adoption, right? And it was a steady and gradual adoption. Whenever they decide to move to cloud or migrate to cloud, companies used to observe what others are doing, and they used to do better studies and statistics and do the assessment, and then used to move to cloud. But for that is not the story for past 2 years, right? Past 2 years, what we have seen is a tremendous increase in the cloud transformation. That means organizations are rapidly moving to cloud, right? And just as a fuel to the fire, right, COVID-19 has forced most of the organization to adopt cloud, and most of the organization is moving towards digital transformation. No matter if it is a IT sector, or it is a manufacturing sector, it is a critical infrastructure sector, Or if you take a hospital, that means health sector, everybody wants to digitalize their business. Everything want to be digitalized. So with this as a catalyst, COVID-19 and pandemic has become a catalyst for this journey. So what we see is not a cloud transformation, it's a rapid and accelerated cloud transformation. So let's see some of the actual figures, right? The statistics. So if we see the top initiatives by organization for past 2 years, so let's compare 2020 and 2021. Digital transformation, as I said, is being the first and top in the list. Then comes the cybersecurity, and then here we are at the cloud or cloud migration. And if we actually see the difference in the growth, where when it comes to cloud migration, it is like from 2020 to 2021, there's 40 to 48%. That means the rate of cloud migration is very significant. So that means the organization are investing a lot so that they want to desperately move to cloud to cope up with their competition, to reach their target goal as a digital transformation, right? Some more fascinating cloud adoption facts, right? These are the facts and figures that's interesting to know, right? It is being predicted that by 2023, the cloud service market is expected to grow $623.3 billion. And if you really see most of the organization, 83% of the enterprises have already shifted most of their IT workloads, right, to the cloud platforms. And 94% of enterprises are already using cloud services one or the other way. And if most of the organization is tremendously investing in cloud transformation, that means at least 30% of the IT budgets have been allocated for cloud computing. And most of the organization, right, 66% of the organization enterprises already have a cloud center of excellence team, a cloud team already in place. And what we see right now is usually organization used to have adopt the cloud, a single cloud, right? Now what we are seeing is multi-cloud, right? The organization is not really choosing one single vendor; they are having multi-platforms, multi-cloud platforms on an average. And 50% of organizations spend more than 1.2 million annually just for paying to the cloud services. And public cloud infrastructure is expected to grow by 35 percentage. That's already grown in 2021, and by 2025 the data stored in cloud data centers is going to exceed hundreds zettabytes. That's huge. So we are seeing about a huge data residing in cloud. So let's take some facts and figures about cloud challenges, right? What are the cloud challenges that each organization or enterprise face today? First is yeah, especially security, because this is a rating that is a study done by RightScale in 2018. That's a source, and most of the organizations already declare that addressing security is a major challenge for most of the organization. And then managing spend and a couple of other factors for which follows. That means security is the topmost challenge for most of the organization. So what is the proof? Yes, there are a lot of data breach incidents reporting every year. A massive, we cannot forget about a massive Capital One data breach, and a lot more has been gradually increased for over the past 3 to 4 years, right? Data breach and data loss is a nightmare for most of the enterprises and organization, and that is one of the most prevalent incident related to cloud. Right? So let's get a sneak peek into what are the threats and issues in cloud. So this is a generic. I would like to put whenever we think about us security issues, right? We would like to classify in different pillars, right? What are the data security issues, right? What are the availability issues? What are the issues related to the compliance and regulations or governance, right? What are the issues related to the discover I mean the disaster recovery, how efficient the organization is prepared to recover from a disaster, an incident, and how what are the threats or issues related to the identity and access management. So this is all generic whatever I'm going to cover as a some subcategory of these threats and issues can be related to any of these pillars. So whatever I'm going to present in next slides is not an exhaustive list, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can today, which I felt is most prevalent issues or threats that is there for cloud security today. One of the biggest security issue that we have usually seen is misconfiguration, right? Cloud is if we really see, cloud is actually powerful. It gives you the liberty and the facility to configure things very quickly. That's mean we can you can spin up a mission within 5 to 10 minutes. You can spin up, or you can develop, you can bring up an application like 3-tier application within 2 or 3 hours, right? So that is the flexibility of the cloud. Then what we have to make sure we should be very careful is how we configure it. If we configure it correctly, it's all right. But if we configure it wrongly, a single mistake can lead to a potential threat. So most of the cloud incidents, if you go back to the root cause, right, it's all might you might be surprised to see which was the all the threats or incidents that has been reported might have occurred due to a single misconfiguration, a single silly mistake done during the coding or during the development. If you really see, take the major cloud security incidents, and the data breach incidents, you might at least come across 10 to 15 cases where S3 buckets has been exposed because it has been set as public, which is it was publicly available, right? So those are these minor security misconfiguration that can lead to a huge impact, right? It can lead to a huge data breach or data loss. So misconfiguration, yes, it is one of the top security issues when we specifically talk about cloud security. Next is the data breach. As I said, data breach is a nightmare for most of the organization today, because data breach can bring an organization into its knees, because its implications and impact is very, very huge. It can have a huge impact on the reputation, can have a huge impact on the regulatory implications, GDPR compliance, and definitely it's gonna affect the company's business in adversely, and that may lead to a irreversible disaster situation for an organization. So data breach is one of the, if we look for cybersecurity incidents for cloud, you end up with the data breach incidents, right? You mostly it's right data breach incidents. Then comes the unauthorized access, right? When we talk about unauthorized access, this is one of the most security issues we face in cloud, where access has not been properly configured, might be which may lead to privilege escalations, or which can lead to elevated privileges unknowingly given to a user, not auditing the user access properly, and thus the malicious attackers or hackers or users can get into the cloud infrastructure. So unauthorized access is also a prevalent security issues if you see today. Let's get into next one, which is insecure interfaces and API, right? Which is very, very important when it comes to cloud. because unlike other on-premise infrastructure, if you really see for cloud, especially uh, when the data and the network is not within control of the organization. The data and the information has to go out from the organization network, it has to take a public internet route until unless if we have any other specialized infrastructure designed like direct connect to the cloud service provider. But most of the cases for most of the organization, it it leaves the boundary of the organization premises, right? And it is very very important how we assess the enterprise interfaces and API. Obviously, the all the calls, all the communications to cloud is mostly through the APIs, right? When we talk about AWS itself has a console, and all the calls from console is seen eventually an API call to the AWS, I mean the cloud service provider. So it is very important we assess the security of the interfaces. Um, what is the most security issues related to API? Using the API key, it's reusing the API key is one of the common mistakes what we see, where we reuse the API keys, and the if it is compromised, it can compromise couple of sensitive API calls, right? So there are a lot of security issues related to the APIs, right? How the APIs is interacting, what is the key generation policy, how secure is the authorization key is being maintained. So all these things are very very important, and in insecure interface or usage of insecure APIs is also a security issue, right? Then what we see is mostly hijacking of accounts. So actually, when we say it can be a different ways, hijacking of accounts is like uh, when the organization or the enterprise is not following a proper policy for password policy, vaguely building a simple password, not setting a complex password, which can be easily brute force, or the ignorance of the developers or the people who are developing the code, who unintentionally leak the passwords through GitHub or uploading it to GitHub or some other forums, or setting default passwords, right, which is easily guessable. And all those things can account to can be clubbed together as a hijacking of accounts. That means if somebody gets into the accounts or the credentials of critical operations within cloud, that leads to a massive destruction, a massive incident for cloud. Then if we see this is something that we cannot neglect, which is insider threat, that is malicious insider. uh, when we talk about mostly in most of the organization, when we talk about security, we always consider people, process, and tool or technology, right? These three has to be very well matured enough. These three has to integrate together, knit together. Then only we can build a security posture, well structured security posture. But what we see here is, even though we have a very good process, even though we have a very good technology in place or automated detection or whatever, all AI and everything, ignorance or unawareness of the people who is handling this infrastructure, right? People who are operating this, the admins, the people who stores or protects this passwords, whatever may be, the people who are handling this infrastructure on a day-to-day basis, if something goes wrong from their hand, it goes out of our control, right? So insider threat is a very very important issue today. See how we can monitor, how we can control intentional unintentional leakage of passwords or data or whatever may be. So that is a huge issue and when it comes to cloud security as well. Then what we have is a denial of service, right? Because um, as cloud, we might have most of the organization might have already migrated its critical infrastructure. I mean, critical operations or servers. Maintaining the availability is a major, very important thing, and we do have a lot of examples for denial of service. So it's very critical to address these issues, right? And should be prepared enough to choose the cloud provider who can give you the right solution and protection when against these DOS attacks. Okay, so we are understood. Okay, we know denial of service is a issue. Malicious insider threat is an issue. Hacking of accounts, insecure APIs, everything what I said is the issues. Okay, already know. So yeah, so now the question might be like, what are the challenges? We know already these are the issues. Okay, how can we address this? Even if we want to address it, what are the challenges in addressing this cloud security? That's what I'm gonna cover in next successive slides. Oh, the one well, first and foremost I would like to highlight, right? This is one of the important thing I would like to highlight to every organization is less visibility and lack of control, because it's a thumb rule, right? We already know, everybody knows we cannot protect what we don't know, or we cannot protect what we can't see. So most of the organization, what we see is some of the organization does not have a proper asset inventory, right? When it comes to a hybrid cloud adoption, half of the things might be the off cloud, and half of the things is in cloud. And but there is an integration between the on premise and on cloud components. So there is no proper asset inventory. If you want to protect something, you need a right inventory, and the inventory should be a prioritized inventory, right? Which is critical. What is being running? Or what version of OS is lying over there in this server, or what kind of encryption is being followed? So we don't. Most of the organization, since the cloud adoption is very complex, we the organization don't have a proper visibility, end-to-end visibility of each components. So that's where the journey has to begin, right? And what usually they have is a tip of the iceberg, right? But most of the thing below the iceberg is might be with the cloud service provider, which we don't have a visibility. The organization don't have a visibility how exactly are they storing this, right? Which server, what kind of server, and what is being run, who is handling this? Such visibility is not there, unlike on premise. And there is a lack of control. One of the another issue with regards to this is I would like to highlight, when it comes to within organization as well, something is very something we call shadow IT is very dangerous, because there are at times when things get installed or things get added to the cloud infrastructure without the knowledge of IT unit or IT administration of the organization. And another issue is already approved infrastructure or servers is being utilized for unintended purposes, right? So that means the organization, if they don't have the visibility on what the server is doing, for what the servers has been installed, and for what this key is being used, or who is having this key, without a proper visibility, obviously it's very difficult to address these security issues, right? Because if we want to fix from one place, we need to know from where we need to start. Another important main challenge is a compliance complexity, right? When it comes to already the compliance and the data privacy and GDPR, everything is complex. When it comes to cloud, it's even complex, because the data might get originated or stored in our on premise, and then it gets migrated to cloud. Then we should be very careful how the cloud service provider is addressing compliance, right? And we do have a lot of compliance to be followed when it comes to PCI DSS, HIPAA, when it comes to other major compliances. We have to be very careful. So addressing the compliance is a bit highly complex when it comes to cloud. Most of the organization are still trying to figure out how to address this. All are in the journey. Yeah. And next, very prevalent challenge in cloud migration or cloud adoption, or when it comes to addressing security of cloud, is vendor lock-in. That means, what is vendor lock-in? That means some of the organization has already adopted a cloud service provider and already running and operating with them, and they already have onboarded their critical infrastructure on the cloud provider. And then suddenly they come to know, okay, this particular cloud service provider have a particular issue on this compliance. Okay, they don't have a compliance to this and this, and we may in a position to force ourselves to um, remigrate or shift from that cloud service provider to another. But we cannot do it because that might be the only cloud provider which can give us the functionality what we intend. That means we are, I mean, most of the organization might be in a desperate situation. They don't have a choice, because if they want to run that business or operation, they have to bear with that vendor, because they don't have any other choice in the market. So the vendor lock-in is a huge topic, right? Most of the organization sometimes has to take the risk uh, without addressing security, have to desperately continue with the vendor which is only available. So that is what vendor lock-in is. And then it comes to user access control. Yes, very important, right? Because access control and identity management is very important when it comes to not only cloud, whatever, whichever IT infrastructure, whichever sector we take, right? But when it comes to cloud, it's highly complex, because the cloud access can be through various forms, right? It can be through server access, it can be through API authorization, or it can be through a console access, right? So the complexity of access control is very huge when it comes to cloud. Until unless the organization choose a right cloud provider which can give the complete visibility of a centralized place or centralized solution where they can monitor their access and do an audit, it is going to be a very challenge situation for the organization. And yes, this is a huge challenge for most of the organization, is lacking the right security skill gap. Uh, Cloud is being adopted for past 10 years, we know, but starting addressing the cloud security is very immature, we should say. And having the right skill set, the hard truth is we don't have much skill set to address cloud security. We don't have right security engineers, cloud security engineers over there, cloud security architects over there. It's very difficult, and we do have a huge skill gap. And that's a very difficult situation where the organization are going through. And then a complex topic, which is data privacy, right? Because in cloud, whatever we are storing, we are obliged to comply with the privacy policies, right, according to each region. And it's a huge and a complex topic in cybersecurity, right? Because what we have seen is mostly organization address data privacy after they onboard the projects or after they onboard the data, like then they think about privacy. but the privacy has to be thought even before you think of migrating to cloud, right? What data we're going to store, what data we're going to handle, where it's going to store, what is the retention period that we're going to have. All these has to be well planned, right, before we onboard the data. It's data privacy is a major, very, very important topic, and it's a big challenge for the organization. Most of the organization does not know how to address it at this current era. And then there's a lack of secure architecture and strategy. That means it is closely somehow related to the what we call a security skill gap, right? Because all this has to be planned. How secure the applications or the data has to be placed, or how securely we have to do the access management. Everything has to be well documented, have to be incorporated as a secure architecture, and there should be a strategy. That means it has to be incorporated in the plan phase itself, right? So before moving into plan phase, how can we achieve it? So what we see is most of the organization has a lot of compliance or procedures or policies in place when it comes to other IT services securities, right? But cloud security, what we lack is a security invariant or security principles or security architecture best practices to be followed. Is not well documented in most of the organization. It's still in an immature state. It has to evolve, right? So that any team or any project who is going to onboard to cloud can have a bible, right? Okay, this is the architecture that we're gonna have. Okay, for this architecture, this is what we have to follow for security, right? So that we can build in security into the architecture phase, right? So that is a biggest challenge. And why it's a challenge? Because we don't have the right skill set or talent or the team to do it today in most of the organization. Then it comes incident response. I should say incident response is a very, very vast topic, and it is a very interesting pillar of a cybersecurity, right? It includes investigation, how rapidly you are reacting to an incident, what is the procedure to be followed, what is the after incident containment, what has to be reviewed. We have to go back and understand what is the root cause analysis, right? What was the root cause? We need to identify the lessons learned, then we need to close it. A lot of things are related to incident response. So incident response is itself is a complex procedure, okay? And I should say this is a unsung hero behind every IT security or IT services, because there is a tremendous work and efforts has been put in, a lot of people working day and night when an incident occurs, right? And when it comes to cloud security, it is very, very important that we know what is there, what has to be done, and incident response playbook is in place. Because incident response playbook what we follow for IT services cannot be reused for cloud. Cloud, we have to have a separate incident response plan, right? So most of the organization don't have that, and it is very challenging for them to generate or build in place an incident response. So now all these are there. So we know the security issues, and we know there are a lot of huge list of this. As I said, not an exhaustive list. It is something that I have handpicked. Whatever challenges I have already informed, right? What I have explained, all those are selected, but it's not an exhaustive list. So we know a lot of issues are there. Then, so that's a question before us is cloud actually secure, right? Who's going to take the responsibility? Who is going to secure it? Is it really secure? Do we need to move, right? So in order to answer to that question, as we all know, the single answer to that question is shared responsibility model. It is very, very important that we understand what is shared responsibility model, right? So this is some of the snippets I have taken from different sources. What is shared responsibility model? So when it comes to shared responsibility model, there are some responsibilities that cloud provider will take care, and there are some responsibilities that the organization, that means the customers of the cloud service provider, have to take care. So when it comes to, let's have a quick check on the list that I have provided here, right? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, secure software as a service. When it comes to user access, it's complete responsibility of customers how to configure their access, how to do their identity and access management, right? It is completely, so if you have misconfiguration or if you don't handle it properly, then it's completely the customers or the users responsibility, right? Then the data, what data is being stored, how the data has to be protected, it's completely the customers, consumers or customers responsibility. When it comes to applications, yes, for informatic infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, everything cloud will take care, and the other one, customers will has to take care. So depending upon that, we do have operating systems, network traffics, hypervisor, infrastructure, physical security. Yes, obviously the cloud service provider will take care, because they never share where exactly your data is being stored, what location, what data center, because they take care of the physical security. If they reveal the address or where the location, GPS location of where your data is being stored, it's outside their security, right? So that is what cloud service provider commit to. That means whichever is there in the hardware and the core software level is AWS responsibility, like the backbone network, right? The backbone database, and whichever is like client side data encryption, data integrity, server side encryption, the network firewall configuration, identity and access management, all has to be the customer responsibility. So whenever the organization go for a cloud adoption, when they interact with the cloud service provider, it is very very important to clearly understand where the responsibilities lies and what is the boundary. Okay, this we have to take care, this cloud service provider already committed to take care. So it's very critical to understand this shared responsibility model. And so we understand the share responsibility model, right? And how do you secure your cloud journey, right? So this is how is the best method we usually say when we go for a cloud adoption or cloud migration. First, the journey has to begin with assessing the state of the cloud adoption, right? Each organization might be in a different level, okay? We need to understand where the organization, where we are standing today. Are we in the initial adoption? That means, we haven't ever thought about cloud migration. We are yet to start. Okay. Are we already in the transformation? That means we started migrating but not fully fledged. Okay. So organization has to evaluate the current state of their cloud adoption, and what is the maturity state, right? If I mean, for example, if we are already mature, that means we've already completed the cloud transformation and already there in a matured state, and what should be my next step for the cloud adoption or to address cybersecurity. So, assessing or understanding where we start or where the organization stand right now is a very critical starting point, like very critical phase. It has to start from there, and then plan it properly, right? Plan and review it. That means we assess the current state. Now we assess, okay, this is my current state, or this is our current state, and this is our target state where we want to reach, or in 5 or 6 or 7 years or 3 years. This is where what we are intending to do as a cloud adoption. Okay, and from where to where, we understand that, and then assess the gap, right? What is the gaps in skills? Do we have the right team to address it? Do we have the right support? For example, do we have the right budget to do it? What are the data privacy implications that we have to follow? What is the security architecture we need to follow? Everything have to be identified. A risk assessment has to be done at this phase, okay? And the final outcome of this planning phase should be a roadmap of activities that eventually feeds into our transition, though. So that will be step by step procedure for the cloud adoption. And then it comes a build, right? So we'll begin with a program to achieve our desired target goal. And during building, it is very important that we integrate security, right? During the plan phase, during the coding phase, during the deployment, during the testing. So whenever we are doing this build phase, security has to be incorporated, integrated, knitted, and security controls should be automatically provisioned. So this is where we can together we can build parallelly a security automation process, right? For example, there can be a situation where a change management can happen. Okay, is there a possibility to automate it, right? To address the security. So those things, if we address at this phase itself, it will be very very useful, right? So that we don't want to reinvent the wheel again. Okay, depending on where we are in our cloud adoption journey, is very unique to each organization, right? It, one site, one size will not fit for all. So it's unique to each organization, but these are the high level things that every organization can follow for a better cloud transformation journey, secure cloud transformation journey. Then we build it. Okay, now we need to run it, operate it, optimize it, right? So there should be process in place for having a perfect governance, and there should be a resources, and then we should have a proper process for identity and access management, infrastructure security. We need to address application security, data protection, logging and monitoring. Then we should have a cloud incident response, because we run it now. After running, what is it? Very important. We need to monitor it, audit it, monitor it, and there should be a proper monitoring, right? So run and optimization and run and operations. There also security has to be addressed well enough. Very very important, right? So in if we put all together in a nutshell, the answer is we end up with DevSecOps, right? Addressing security in the plan phase, in the coding phase, right? And then the build phase, test phase, security during release, security during deploy, security during operate, and security during monitors. That means security has to be knitted in each and every pipeline, and that should be the solution. So the best way to address the security is to have a DevSecOps model in even in the cloud transformation journey, right? Cloud adoption and cloud migration. And last but not the least, to have a security and privacy mindset and culture is very very important. Okay, if you don't have the right people and if you don't have the right support, or if for example uh, one tester might be very very cautious about security. He knows security is very at most important, and security should be step zero. But the developer who is working might not be very concerned about security. For him, security might not be the first priority. For them, it might be the deploying the code, fixing the bug, right? As early as possible is the utmost priority. So it's very important to have a security and in culture, the mindset which is very important, and the organization should have right support from the budget level as well, for a smooth transition to cloud adoption in a secure way. So with that, I think I've covered pretty much about what I have to cover today. I think I'm right on the timing. Yeah. So I think we'll utilize this rest of the time for any Q&A.
It was a nice talk, and for an excellent talk. Thank you so much, ma'am. We all know that you are a never give up person with strong determination and passion for leading and creating excellence. And you covered almost all the topics like fascinating cloud adoption, facts, misconfiguration, hijacking of accounts, like so many topics. And we would also thank you for that. And we can ask the audience now any Q&A section, any questions or doubts. Audience, you can put your questions in the Q&A section on your right hand side of your screen.
So I can see a question: what kind of attack is Log4j security vulnerability? Okay, so that's a nightmare which is running right now. Okay, so it is a 0-day exploit. I know you might be already knowing it, or else you can probably Google it. It's a security vulnerability, 0-day security vulnerability that has been identified for an Apache logging library. Okay, and yes, so a particular version is being affected, and most of the organization are going through a nightmare. Yeah, because that's why I highlighted asset inventory is very, very important, right? Because when such issues happen, the first and foremost incident response is we need to go and patch it and update it to the most safer, secure version. And as of today, if we don't have a asset inventory, we cannot do it properly. So Log4j is a vulnerability which is in Apache logging, which is so we can. It's already in Google. You can go ahead and Google it. Another question I can see is how to identify leak points of multiple cloud platform of an organization. Any recommendation on cloud, blue team and red team books? Yeah, so definitely see cloud leak points of multiple cloud platforms. I don't know what you meant by cloud leak points, but what is the recommendation on cloud blue team and red team books? Yes, so it's better we refer to each, because for each cloud provider it is different. When it comes to red teaming within AWS cloud, we cannot go ahead and do the red teaming. It has to follow a certain procedure, because when it comes to vulnerability scanning, we cannot scan it and without intimating the cloud, right? The service provider. So there is a certain procedure unique to each cloud provider before we do a red teaming activity thing. So when it comes to AWS, we do have a form to fill and intimate the cloud provider, and there is a procedure to follow. What is the biggest cloud attack in your experience? Obviously, it is a data breach. This not from my experience, but that is what from everyone's experience. Data breach and data loss is the biggest cloud attack an organization can afford. See, when it comes to denial of service, yes, if it is not a critical infrastructure or something, the organization, if they have a disaster recovery in place, they can afford the impact of DOS. But when it comes to data breach or data loss, is a very impactful situation, right? It's which can be considered as the biggest cloud attack which has ever happened. Okay, and which, as I said, which impact business very adversely. I think that's it. That we don't have any more questions, Jasila.
Okay, ma'am. We can wind up. Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am, for all your answers. It was quite complete clarification on those questions. And now I think we have completed our session mostly. So indeed, it was a both informative and motivating speech by you. We were pleased to have your participation in this outstanding conference, and we thank you for your valuable contribution. Thank you, ma'am. And now, for the audience, thank you all for your unlimited cooperation and patience. And now we have an upcoming session by Ms. Lakshmi Nair on the topic securing what you know and knowing what to secure. It should be an interesting session. And so the session will start up at sharp 5:30 p.m. Please stay tuned and switch over to the next session. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am. And we are grateful that you are a part of WICS events at RedTeam Security Summit. We would like to collaborate with you in the future as well, ma'am.
Sure, sure. Thank you. It was a complete honor and pleasure to address Red Team Security for the second time. Yeah, hope to see you in the next event.
Okay, ma'am.
Bye
Thank you so
bye.
much.
Have a
Okay,
great day.
thanks.
Bye.
Have a great day. And viewers, you can go to the booths as well, feedback session. You can put your feedbacks and suggestions to the feedback section also. Thank you so much.